while changing my daughter in front of the open closet door. She kept looking around me and laughing. I asked her what was so funny. She said, "The man." To which I replied, "What man?" She then pointed at the closet and said, "The man with the snake neck." I turned around and nothing was there. I'm afraid to look into the history of my house to see if anyone hung themselves in the closet. At least she wasn't scared. My coworker's 4-year-old daughter always thought that the rattling of the water pipes in the kitchen cupboards were white wolves, and the sound always scared her. One day she was sitting at the kitchen table and she said, "Mom, the white wolves aren't bad. They're our friends." Her mom encouraged the idea by saying, "Yes, the white wolves are protecting us. They are our friends." Then her daughter added in, "They're our friends, but not the man who crawls on the floor and stands by my bed." I work in a preschool. Creepy things get said and done all the time. The one that sticks out to me happened last year. There is a small kitchenette area in our classroom that the kids use during free time for playing house or whatever pretend games they can think of. There was one little girl that I was keeping a close eye on, mostly because of how withdrawn from the other kids she was. I noticed she was playing with a baby doll in the kitchenette, rocking it back and forth and singing to it. She then took the baby, shoved it into the play oven, and slammed the door shut. She turned around, looked straight at me and said, "Sometimes bad babies go in time out," in the creepiest little girl voice I've ever heard before, smiling and running off. That one kind of shook me. When my son was little, maybe 3, he used to do this weird crawl where he would slide his forehead along the floor. That was pretty creepy in itself. Then one night he crawled across the hallway into my room like that and stood up a few inches from my face and made a weird meow sound. He got into bed with me and went to sleep. Another time he was freaking out about a monster in the basement, so we went down and saw nothing, of course. And as I turned out the light and headed upstairs, and he said, "He's right behind us now," I might have peed a little. Possibly the creepiest thing he did was one day I scolded him for misbehaving, so he hid his head under his blanket. I pretended I couldn't find him by saying, "Where is my little Blakey?" He slowly lowered the blanket and with a dead evil stare said, "Blake is gone. I am Roy." I'm certain he's possessed. We never knew any Roys, as far as I can remember. Still don't. Never figured out where he picked up the name. My mom likes to tell this story. Apparently, when I was 5 or 6, I told her that aliens had stolen her real son and replaced him with me, an exact copy. Someday, I would return to my home planet. But she shouldn't be sad, because her real son had a good life in our zoo. My 3-year-old nephew was at my cottage. He's asked me numerous times about the girl over there while pointing at one of the back bedrooms. The place is small, and there is definitely nobody there, so I just dismiss it as a really active imagination. He has lots of imaginary friends. Then some friends are visiting, and they have a daughter around the same age. She has never met my nephew. Twice in one day, she asked about the pretty girl, while pointing at the exact same room. Definitely caught me out, and I didn't know what to think. Then at Christmas, my family was over at my place, and my nephew pointed at a picture of my wife and asked if she was coming to visit us here, or does she just stay at the cottage. My wife died 10 years ago. Personally, I don't really believe in paranormal stuff, so it's probably just my logical brain putting together a bunch of kids' ramblings, but it definitely got my attention. About 8 years ago, I was home on R&R from Iraq and hanging out with my 5-year-old niece. We were going to get ice cream or something, and our conversation goes something along the lines of, "She. Do you get ice cream over there?" I think she means Iraq. Me. Yes, but I don't really eat it. She. They said they'd be back for you. I'm glad you escaped. When they take you again, don't eat the ice cream. The aliens just give it to you because they like fat animals in their zoos. They won't come for me again because they said I'm never going to get fat. What makes this even creepier is that I told my mom this story later that day, and she said that when I was a child, I once told her that the spacemen took my measurements for my cage and would be back for me later. My noticeably pregnant sister and I were having a conversation at the dining room table. My 4-year-old son was also present and asked my sister if there was a baby in her belly. She affirmed. He, completely straight-faced, slid from his chair and headed for the kitchen saying, "We need to get it out. I'll go get the knife." I don't even know. We were having roast chicken for dinner. Son was 3 years old, has a light bulb moment. Holds up chicken skin. When we say chicken skin, is this really the skin of the chicken? Like my skin? The next day, after some Sunday napping, we play cars. I see a fresh scar on his foot. A straight line with a little dry blood. Ask the little sir about it. I cut myself. I took a knife because I wanted to see what my meat looked like under my skin, but it hurt a little, so I stopped. I still don't know. Good thing he didn't want to see his sister's flesh. My wife was getting my 2-year-old son up one morning. He was standing in his bed crib. As she said good morning and walked over to him, he picked up her shirt a little and crooked his head to the side. She asked him what he was doing, and he said, "Looking for my baby sister in your tummy." She laughed it off as a weird kid imagination thing. We found out later that at the time she was 2 weeks pregnant, and it was, in fact, a girl. We are due in September. We had never really had the talk about where babies come from, nor did we talk about having another child at all around him. So spooky. A good friend of mine and her husband bought what is considered an old house around here. Western Canada, not many houses over 100 years old. They were renovating the basement one day while I was visiting. I was down there alone with their son, who was barely 2 at the time, and could not yet speak in full sentences. He took my hand and led me over to a brick chimney-like thing with a rusty metal door on it. He looked up and said, "That's where the dead babies go." I was horrified. Firstly, because, like I said, the kid could barely talk, let alone say something like that. I doubt he even knew what dead meant. I'm positive that no one would have told him that, and there were no older kids around that would have said that as a joke. Still creeps me out to this day. When my daughter was around 4 or 5, we lived in a house that had been converted into 3 separate apartments. We lived in the basement portion. Because of the way they converted the house, there was a small recessed area under one of the stairways that formed a small closet storage space in her room. One night while she was getting ready for bed, I overheard her talking to someone in her room. I poked my head in and asked if she was calling for me. Her words, "No." I was talking to the little boy who lives in my closet. He's dead. My daughter said to me that there is a woman who watches her watch movies in her room and sleeps on the ceiling above her bed when she sleeps. She also says it does not like me and wants to eat my heart. My kid watches Elmo and Dinosaur Train. Where in the hell did she get this from? So a friend of mine was 6 years old when she told her mother that the lady who used to live here told me that she hates the wallpaper and that you are covering her note. My friend's mom just thought it was make-believe rambling and forgot about it. Well, 12 years later, when the mom is redecorating and taking down the wallpaper in the attic, she finds a death note scratched into the wall. The mom freaks the F out and calls my friend and starts crying, asking if she remembered anything more about the woman who spoke to her. My friend starts to recall the woman and starts to freak out, saying she only remembered talking to her in the attic. While not something my own child has said, my younger cousin, around 5 at the time, once drew a picture of a black monster, looked up at me and said, "He told me to draw this. He's coming for you. You better hide." My mom's dad died 10 years before I was born. I was about 6 or 7 when my parents divorced. The day before my mom told me they were divorcing, apparently, I was at the kitchen table drawing or something, while my mom cooked tea. She says I stopped instantly and looked toward the front door as if I'd heard it open. I stared for a long time, then giggled, turned toward my mum and said, "Granddad says don't worry, everything will be okay, and he won't let anything bad happen." I then began humming and went back to my drawing. My mum says it's the single creepiest thing that's ever happened to her, and I have no memory of it happening. If you're craving more spine-chilling tales, join us for more haunting mysteries and horror stories. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notifications.